degree of slayering.
Well,
And
they do. They have every class has a degree of slayering because it's a gun-based game. Every class uses any gun they want. There's no, other than the class-specific swords. There's no like, there's no. It's not like warlocks only get to use, I don't know, fusion rifles and 120 hand cannons or whatever. Like, 120 hand cannons is a bad example because that's a very slayery weapon. But it's not like warlocks are running around going, oh yeah, we're providing like covering fire with auto rifles, and the hunters are getting in there with the hand cannons, and they're the only ones that can use hand cannons, and like, so every class is completely has ample amounts of slayer potential.
I disagree completely, because especially in PvP where the sandbox is the same effectively as PvE.
Monte Carlo
PvP, you know what I mean?
sucks, FYI.
There we go. So it's like, to make the sandbox fair, it would be very unfair if warlocks were completely like a support-focused class in a game that doesn't really support being a support. Like, even in PvE, the only reason warlocks are such a good support class is just because Well is amazing and Benevolent Dawn is thing. Because you get reduced cooldowns. If it weren't for that, no one would use them. People would just use Titans because the bubble is that good.
Then every class has an element of being a support. Every class has a subclass which is a support class. You've got Tether, and I would argue Revenant Hunter it's crowd control. It's a support class. You're not using it for DPS.
No, I would not put crowd control in the same thing as support. I'd say they do different things.
Yeah, but they're not focused. They're not focused on the Slayer role.
Yeah. So, but the thing is,
whereas warlocks have. Look at Chaos Reach. That is crowd control, and that is sustained DPS. Like, that deletes a room full of ads, and you can melt a boss with it.
But going back to neutral game in PvP, Chaos Reach's neutral game PvP is relegated to a ranged melee, decent enough grenades, and getting a little bit of ability energy back on every like third kill if you're lucky. Ow, pain.
Yeah, and when we're going with the strength of the neutral game, we had talked about this before, but it's the strength of the top tree warlock kit versus the weakness of some of the others. And so you've got that bigger power disparity because you've got on top tree, you've got that ranged melee that has still a hint of tracking. You've got that increased inner accuracy and increased airtime with the grenade. And then you've got Icarus Dash on top of that. The thing not only is it's got the strongest of the neutral game abilities and pseudo abilities like Icarus Dash, but it's also got it's got a really low tier competition. So you could theoretically keep them in as long as you reined in Icarus Dash. The way that I thought of.
Well, the thing is, it's like, especially speaking as a warlock main, I prefer to keep Icarus Dash the way it is, and then just like swap melees. Like, give the melee to bottom tree, because no one uses bottom tree for anything. Because that subclass has no neutral game. The neutral game is you can shatter dive without actually shatter diving.
You can't just say give another class the melee. Icarus Dash is still the strongest movement in the game, and it's like a free little bonus almost. Like, it's
two of them.
It's like, oh, here, have a little bonus ability, and it's got no cost to it. It's absolutely.
I feel like my main gripe with it, and I think you share this, is the fact that you have two of them, and they have such a quick cooldown.
But then put it in context with the wretched the neutral game of the other classes. So you have like even if hunters don't have an inherent non-dodge movement ability. They still have excellent movement games with, like, so what, so like, Gunslinger, they get weapon buffs when you get precision hits and stuff, you get cooldown when you burn people, Tether can go invis, because just reasons, Tether can get tracking, you get enhanced radar, hell, you have bloody flawless execution, which is the most overpowered ability in the game.
Oh, yeah, flawless execution is strong, but
Yeah.
I feel
Titans
like
get weapon buffs and shiz like frontal assault. The one where if you break shields, you get tons of stability. Hell, just health regen on any melee kill. Undead. The volatile thing on void ones. And then you have warlock neutral game, which is non-existent. You have falling down really quickly. You have abilities, which you get every 30 seconds. And then you have Dawnblade, which is the only one with an actual neutral game. That's not.
I feel like there was a perfect representation of how the Warlock kit was too strong. You saw how that curved around the pillar I was at.
Yeah, I mean, I will definitely admit, Celestial Fire should be like a 10 range meter thing, not as much range as it is. Its range is very, very too good.
I
How?
like, how would you then balance Icarus Dash?
How I feel it should be is I would settle for one or the other, but I would prefer to have both. Is to give the Icarus Dash just one charge instead of two, because then it puts it more in line with Hunter Dodge. And then I would increase the cooldown time a little bit. I believe
But that
it's-
makes it a really bad ability.
No, it doesn't.
It's not a spammable get out of jail free card every time. It's something where you gotta put a little more calculation into it when you use it. So I can't. Okay, I'm gonna go in, pop a couple shots, Icarus Dash out, do that again, wait 5 seconds, and then I've got all my Icarus Dash back. Because it's the cooldown plus the amount that you get that really makes it overpowered in my eyes.
What if it damaged you to use?
Well, then no one would use it. Because then it wouldn't be what it's designed to do properly.
That's kind of interesting because, well, if we look at it this way, especially in the higher PvP and in the metas that we're at right now, you got hand cannons, shotguns. So, especially with the hand cannons, depending on how much damage it actually takes, it's not going to reduce your shots to kill. It's going to make the kills more forgiving, so you might get 2-shot headshot and 1 body instead of 3 tap to the head. But the issue there is it starts to reduce time to kills of weapons, which would, like Bubblegum was saying, it would reduce what people that they want to use it. But I feel like if it was kept as is and we were adding a downside, that's a kind of reasonable downside.
So I'm suggesting, say the first one's free, second one deletes your shield.
Yes, maybe not deletes the shield, but I'm thinking back to Destiny 1, Touch of Malice. Sketchy wouldn't know this, but it was a scout rifle. You get all your shots in the magazine, and then the last one infinitely regens, but it takes some health. I think having a Touch of Malice effect on there might not be half bad. Maybe a way to delay health regen is another way to do it, because recovery is such a huge thing in like Trials of Osiris.
Yeah, that's...
To be fair, we are assuming you're still using the trees, which I assume Bungie are starting to move away from for the light subclasses.
I would
don't
hope
get
so. I feel that'd be interesting.
I don't think they will move away from the trees. I think they'll... I think they'll keep. It'd be nice, granted, to see them introduce like an aspect fragment thing, and you've got only so many slots to play with in each one. Icarus Dash would cost 3. Do you know what I mean? Like, it would be an aspect that it costs 3, and you can only use, like, say whatever the weakest one is. Is it 3 or 4 you have to play with stasis?
2, but if you put certain shards on, you can get an extra aspect.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So no, it wouldn't. Sorry, I'm saying it costs 3. I meant it. I'm thinking the shards.
2?
You've got 4, but it's the aspects that. Yeah, it'd be a fragment, wouldn't it? It would cost. So yeah, the fragment would cost 3. That way, you'd have 1 left. I don't know why I thought it was an aspect, not a fragment. But yeah, Icarus Dash would have to be a fragment, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so would bloody Celestial Fire. Oh my god.
Yeah, and they would also be in the same slot.
Yeah, well, I will say, I do think having both of them on the same subclass and Heat Rises, I think having 2 of them on the same subclass would be fair enough, but having all 3 is too much. It's not quite fair.
As evidenced by back when they gave us the trials win rate data, back when they did the next stasis nerf, the last ones, they showed that, I believe, in the club.
Wait, I didn't. Oh no.
But yeah, the solutions that we're presenting do have to take into account either having class trees or aspects. I feel like it might not take 2 fragments if they do it like stasis, but instead it just doesn't give you a bonus slot. Like the enhanced hunter grenades gives you. Like, I can run 3 stasis fragments because of that. But if we're putting top tree dawns, Icarus Dash is one of those, then what we would end up doing is that just doesn't give you an extra, it just takes up a slot, so you would only have 2 unless you moved things around.
And possibly decrease a stat like recovery by 10.
Actually, that's actually very interesting.
Do you forget they have that? Yeah, they do have that, don't they?
I don't think 10 is necessarily enough, because you can easily counter 10 with 1 mod.
The thing is, don't forget, recovery uses the most energy to rank up, so... 10, plus it's 5 seconds on your bloody cooldown, so it matters. Like,
yeah, so
especially on Warlock,
because that also messes with your rift.
Yeah, so to
I would like to make it 15 or 20. 15 because that also just will throw your stat off just a little bit, and what that means is there's a little more variety. You're not just slapping 10s on all the time. In your armor, like, you're actually looking for more specific, okay, I want 16 here, because that gets me to, with that 21, I'll get to a complete whole number in the 10s.
But then
I mean, it just allows for a little more shaking up of the player building.
So imagine they don't, because I honestly don't think they're going to go aspects and fragments for light subclasses. I think they're going to kind of stick with them the way they are, because they're not going to change all of them.
Yeah.
There's no way they're changing all of them, so they're not going to put like, they've already put so much work into having them the way they are. Like, there's a lot of development time already used creating them, so they're not going to just go, well, we've now created this, we've made the dark subclasses unique. Like, there's a way to differentiate them. They're not just another tree with a diamond with 4 things and some extra bonuses that. So, but there's nothing to stop them, I don't think, saying, okay, you choose Top Tree Dawn. Top Tree Dawn gives you negative 15 recovery.
That's actually a good point. I definitely miss how in D1 you could just modify your stats directly.
Yes.
Like, Like with because you like with words, you had both the second and third columns of your class upgrades could directly mess with your stats, so you could either
All the
completely max
codes,
out.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I remember on Warlock, especially on Void Walker, you'd max out your discipline and recovery as much. No, you'd max out your recovery and not like recovery, your agility and discipline, because you just spam grenades as much as possible, but you didn't need to worry about recovery because you had the health regen.
So that does bring a lot of interesting. There's a couple avenues that Bungie could go through to adjust not only top tree dawn as we're discussing right now, but other abilities,
Other classes,
that are
you could buff an underused class by having it give you an inherent bonus to intellect or to recovery.
Well, the stat bonuses are why I'm still using stasis, because I mean, okay, I can put a little more allocation into discipline while having some things, and your stat package is a little bit better, and especially with the recovery and resilience, that is very important because it allows me to get the magic number in this meta, 6D, tier 6 resilience. It allows me to get that with the armor that I currently have.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't have armor on my hunter. I've not been playing long enough. I've been playing since Beyond Light, so I don't have the armor. I have to use stasis on my hunter when I play PvP. Because I used it in PvP when I unlocked it. So I was like, oh man, I'm actually good at this game. Turns out I wasn't good at the game. I just had shurikens that killed teams of guardians for me. But now I do use it because I still enjoy Shatter Dive, and it's like the movement that gives me the ability to drop out of the air at a moment's notice.
Yeah,
like
kind
that.
of like what is it? What's it called? Phoenix Dive from Bottom Tree. I also like the.
But it's that, and the fact it gives me that +10 because I don't have none of my armor setups. The only armor setups that will give me 100 recovery, which I kind of always want. He says, running around with a 90 recovery Titan. Ow.
To put it in context,
Yeah.
both Shark and Sketch are Hunter mains, and I'm the only Warlock main here. None of us like Titans. Titans mill.
Yes.
I mean, they're fun. I like Titans. I like running with all the classes. The only reason I'm not running a Warlock in PvP... That was terrible. Oh my god. Just pretend no one saw that. The only reason I'm not using a Warlock in PvP this season is because I don't have two
Warlocks
sets of
are
armor
bad.
for my Warlock, and I really want to use Stasis in Grandmasters. And I can't be bothered to keep swapping mods. So I've got it set up for Grandmasters, and that's it. I don't use it for anything else.
Actually, tangent. Can Bungie introduce loadouts already, please?
Ah, yes.
Bloody hell, I hate having to manually swap out mods when I want to, like,
I know
use a different
there's
weapon.
on some APIs and some vault apps. There was this one in Destiny 1 as the Ishtar Commander, but for Destiny 1 you could actually set a loadout. I think you can do this on Destiny Item Manager.
I think you can still do it on
like
Ishtar Commander.
official...
I use Ishtar Commander. I don't know if it... I've been told it has that functionality, but I've not seen it. I've not used it.
In an official capacity, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know you can opt to you have things that like optimize the stat numbers of your armor, but I just really hate how in D1 in D1 you didn't have the problem where weapons didn't increase your target acquisition or your flinch. They increased ammo and reload speed only. You didn't have the dexterity things. I hate how having to use a weapon you have to spend like 2,500 glimmer to just re-mod armor, and it's a pain all the time. Just like if I wanted to change my load to hand cannon shotgun, god forbid, I'd have to spend 2,500 glimmer to change all the mods. On console that takes like a good 5 minutes load time.
Well, I don't even care about the glimmer. Just give me the option to set up several loadouts, like maybe 3 or 4, even if it was just like 3, yeah, 3 or 4, like, you know, I can have 2 PvP, 2 PvE setups, and and it just it says this setup to change from your current setup is X Glimmer, and I'll be like, yeah, right, I'll pay that. It's fine. I don't care about the Glimmer cost. Glimmer's a pointless resource because it's so easily obtainable.
All right. So I guess back to our
Yeah, tangent over.
stash. Yeah, tangent. So we've got 3 avenues, it seems right now. We make some classes have inherent stat additions or subtractions. We can make Icarus Dash itself have a stat, think of it as like kinetic damage weakness, but for recovery, not increased damage. So it's like a 3-second time where you take more damage, not take more damage. You don't recover as fast. And then we've got, well, I guess there's 4 avenues. We nerf Icarus Dash itself, or we go with a stasis type fragment setup.
Or the 5th, we buff other subclasses to where they have a neutral game instead of... So, like, Voidwalkers, they don't have an inherent neutral game at all. Their neutral game is their abilities only. So, like, top 3, you have your Empowered Grenade. Once you use your grenade, your subclass is useless. Your entire subclass revolves around that grenade. That is bad unless you have very certain builds which only work when your teammates aren't slaying anything in a 20-meter radius. Devour, in theory, is such an overpowered ability because it's health regen, it's this, it's that, it's grenade recovery. You have several exotics on all the subclasses which completely replace that. Your Comstein Armlets replace Devour, you have 2 Titan subclasses replace Devour, and One-Eyed Mark replaces Devour. Your buddy... On Hunters, you have 2...
Wormhusk Assassin's Cowl.
Yeah, Wormhusk Assassin's Cowl. You have 2 of the Arc Strider subclasses do the same thing as well. It's just so much replaces Devour. Devour's only good in like 2 very niche circumstances, being solos and very certain content.
What exactly is Devour?
So you consume a grenade, or you get a kill with charged abilities, so your Nova Bomb or your energy melee.
Yeah,
and what that does is it refills your health every time you get a kill, and that timer is reset. Lasts for 10 seconds.
Yeah, and you get, I believe it's a
so every class has a replacement because Crimson exists.
Exactly.
But
so it's like the entire
you can't just buff all the other classes and expect that to fix the problem.
Because I think it was what was it? People didn't want to have Thorn nerfed. Like, oh, why not just make everything on the level of Thorn? The same thing happened with Luna's Howl Not Forgotten. May they rest in pieces. They're just so powerful. But why not just make everything that's good? What that does is that's a huge power creep problem. I mean, we saw it statistically with the Palindrome. The best base stats on a gun, we've seen period in this game. D1 or D2. It's got, like, some, especially in hand cannons, it's just unseen. So I feel like we would run into that, but with classes, where updates to classes, or more classes, if they get added, they just get progressively more powerful. And instead of a reduction in power creep, like, your power slows down, and then you can progressively, like, every once in a while, just, okay, we'll buff things. You're just gonna have a huge set of power creep, and then you nerf things. But increased power creep would create much more, like, just disdain for certain classes. I mean, look how Stasis went. So, nerf Stasis bad. And there's so much negative feelings around it that no one just looks at how cool it was.
But the thing is, though, it's like, so if it's like if you take Stasis, there were arguably 3 subclasses that could compete against Stasis. You had Code of the Protector, you had, and then actually, well, okay, you had 4, being Code of the Protector, Military Night Stalker, and Chaos Reach and
Night
Top Tree
Stalker.
Dawnblade.
Night Stalker didn't compete with Stasis.
Military did, because Flawless Execution is that good, and the Smoke Nades are actually really good. Like even after the nerfs, it's still a really good subclass. It's just underused because Stasis is so popular.
Yeah, but it's ground based. Like ground based subclasses couldn't compete with Stasis. You can't compete with couldn't compete with Duskfield grenades.
So Stasis excels in killing people in a 15-meter distance. If you're closer than 50 meters to a Stasis user, they can freeze you, they can slow you, they can do whatever they want. If you're farther away than 15 meters, it's a lot harder for a Stasis user to use their Stasis things, because think about it, Shurikens, sure, they go a far distance, but because of their speed, you're much more likely to miss it further than 50 meters. The Warlock melee has, 12-meter range. The Warlock Rift has a 6-meter. Hunter Dodged that has 8-meter. The Titan melee, I think that's around 8 meters, the lunge on that.
Which
And
Titan melee? The Stasis one.
Yeah, the cryo one. And even their slide to a degree is like... It's like... Code of the Protector has suppression nades, which is just amazing against everything. Flawless Execution rewards great gunplay, which means you can stay out of the 50-meter radius. And then Top Tree Dawnblade, you have aerial play, which avoids most of Stasis. And then Chaos Reach, the super, is just a counter to everything in the game with Geomags. Because I will admit, topping off on Geomags is overpowered as hell, and I do think they need a rework. Like, I still think they should extend super duration on damage, but they should do something else with topping off. Topping off needs a rework, because it does just break the super economy completely. Yeah. A bit like Raijin's Raijin's, the Hunter thing for bloody, Twirly Blade.
Yeah, that is Raijin's. Actually, I haven't figured out how to work it.
Do it. Tell us.
It's the super button. I've tried the super buttons. I've tried pretty much any button, and it's just like doesn't want to cancel. He knows how strong that is. But how would we avoid power creep where we end up because we're buffing things and then a class feels too weak, so we get into a cycle of, oh, this class is too weak. Let's give it something like Frontal Assault.
The thing is, like, I'd give every class a neutral game. Every class has every tree has its own unique neutral ability. In D1, every class had that. So bloody Hunters had stuff like perfect execution. You had dodging. You had going invisibility. Titans, you had the stuff where you slide over ammo to get assault. You had shoulder charge and all the wacky things you could do with that, with just shoulder charge in general. Juggernaut, which was a really cool thing, even if it was overpowered as hell for a little bit. That was delayed as hell. Yeah. And then Warlocks, so Arc, you have like the Ionic Traces, you had Static Field, which sped up certain cooldowns when you're close to allies. Sunsinger had the Viking Funeral builds, which were so fun. I miss those so much. Yeah. And then the same reduced cooldown on certain abilities, and then Voidwalker had Energy Drain. I will never know why they took out Energy Drain the way they did. Energy Drain was the most fun thing about Warlock in D1, in my opinion.
Yeah, petition to bring back Viking Funeral, by the way.
I agree. Viking Funeral builds and like true Energy Drain builds were the reason I played just D1. Like, D1 Voidwalker was so fun.
So I feel like what are your suggestions for, is it a class-wide neutral game you're thinking of, or subclass-wide? Because then that adds a whole bunch of things that Bungie needs to add.
Yeah.
It's it has extra work.
It has to be subclass, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't, because otherwise you're giving it has to be subclass, because otherwise, if you're going, okay, we're giving Solar Warlocks neutral game, then the top three Dawnblade's getting additional neutral game. That doesn't.
No trees, not subclasses. So each separate tree has its completely a neutral game, because most subclasses, like about half of them, already have that. Code of Command,
sorry, that's what I mean.
I've
been referring to.
You have the volatile mechanic. Top tree Gunslink, you have perfect not perfect. You have practice makes perfect and knock them down. Bottom tree, you have six shot. What's the one for that one? That also knock them down. It's like what does six shot do when like you get precision kills? Does that also knock them down, or does that have
perfect?
Practice makes perfect. That's the one.
But then, how many neutral movements? How many neutral movements are possible?
Yeah,
like
movement abilities.
They're different. Are they going to be able to do implement?
Very easily. D1 had a lot of them. Like for example, Viking Funeral burn effects last longer.
Well, I mean, but we're talking movement because the main power that I think we've decided on Icarus Dash is the movement itself.
Yeah. So I mean, Hunters arguably have that with Shatter Dive and Dodge already. Titans have Shoulder Charge.
Well, Titans have that hammer thing that I was on the solo one. Yeah. I'm calling it hammer thing.
Yeah.
Where you do your melee and you move forward, and it doesn't use your melee up because you didn't contact an opponent.
Yeah. All of the Titan subclasses have one of those. There's Shield, Bash, Avoid, there's Shoulder Charge for Arc. All of them have that, and they are all arguably broken as hell because they're all one shots. They all have a specific ability where Arc does just a hell of a lot of damage. Void suppresses people. Arc sunders them and increases sources damage and has an AoE effect. It's like Titans have a lot of them. They're just the base subclass is that.
So was it Top Tree Titan that has that then?
I think so. It's Code of the Juggernaut, I want to say. Yeah.
So which classes would you see to?
I'm on Code of the Juggernaut. It doesn't have that.
Movement or neutral game ability.
So I'd say all of the. Okay, top and bottom tree Voidwalker need one, because Bloom is terrible. Bloom is a wasted ability where it looks cool and that's its entire use at the moment. It doesn't do anything, so replace that. Devour doesn't have a neutral game at the moment. It's just the each Orc Grenade is the entire thing, and that's so replaceable. Warmine healing builds exist. I think they should go back to the way Energy Drain worked in D1. That worked a lot better. So Arc subclasses. Top Tree has what is it? I think it's Perpetual Charge, where getting kills with your melee recharges your grenade, and getting kills with your grenade recharges your melee, which is already exists, so you don't need to give that one. Middle Tree is Ionic Traces. Bottom Tree, I'm not sure has one. Unless actually, Bottom Tree has being around allies recharges your Rift, and if allies are in Rift, it lasts slightly longer. But that could probably use a buff because Arc Buddies is not the best subclass in the world.
So what I'm noticing here is that it's mostly. I mean, this is your area of expertise, of course, but it's all Warlock stuff. So you're thinking that.
Well, so far,
yeah.
So far, Hunters. I think barring the Arc subclasses, they all have one. Like Middle Tree has when someone's burning, they get ability cooldowns. Top and bottom tree have practice makes perfect and knock them down respectively. Night Stalker, you have the enhanced radar thing in Heart of the Pack, as well as Flawless Execution.
For
Then
middle tree. Bottom tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see.
bottom tree, you have Territorial Imperative, I think it's called, where your effects last twice as long. And then maybe give it something else if you want.
Combat.
And to be fair, they have
Lockdown.
dodge on invis, which is invis on dodge is pretty good. I think Arc is the only one because you have the one where they sprint slightly faster, which is kind of meh. I think one of them, you have the when you're hit by an attack, you disorientate someone, which is also kind of meh because by then you're dead. And then does Middle Tree have what? Or I can't remember if the last tree I've missed. I can't remember what subclass ability that has. If that is a neutral game. And then Titans of Sunspot and Roaring Flames, but I don't think Top Tree has an inherent one, if I remember correctly.
I literally just palmed my own face. God damn it.
So it looks
But yeah.
like we're pretty much going through, and this is our options for if we want to buff everything and not nerf Icarus Dash. But
Yeah, because I think every subclass needs its unique neutral game that doesn't require an ability to be used or makes the ability strong enough that it counteracts not having something. So like Middle Tree has Roaring Flames, which is a damage buff, which is bloody insanely good. And they have stuff like Sunspots, which is also a really good mechanic. Icarus Dash is a strong enough mechanic on its own. So the Solar Gunslingers have their respective mechanics, which are all good enough because they either give great weapon buffs or ability cooldowns. Arc Hunters don't really have that much. Give them something. My expertise on Titans is limited, but I think the Arc ones all have respective weapon buffs apart from Bottom Tree, because that's based around the super, how I'm gonna die. But yeah, rambling aside, I do think they need to give, like, the lacking subclasses a noticeable, actual, inherent thing that a subclass can do.
I would definitely hope that, like within the TWABs before Season 15, they actually detail their thought process and what they're going to actually be doing to the classes. I do hope that.
Or do we
ends
know
up
that that's
coming.
going to happen at the beginning of
Yes,
Season
it's
15, or will that be... Or they actually state they're going to be doing they're going to be buffing classes?
Yeah, that's when the reworks and the nerf to... crap, what was it? Forget. There are a couple notable nerfs.
Anarchy.
Oh, yes, of course.
He's getting nerfed, yeah.
But that's all the general stuff, and they have already plans, as they've discussed, for buffing the classes, but they never said what they're doing.
Yeah.
So we can't really
speculate too much just yet.
Yeah, we can't speculate. We can't really think about how they would fare in the context of the sandbox. And then there's also that we just can't compare Icarus Dash, our main topic here, to anything because we have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see, before the update, they tell us what they're doing.
I also think what makes Icarus Dash stand out so far is that it is by far the best of the Warlock subclasses in PvP. Like, even compared to Middle Tree Arc, it's got a great super, but the rest of the subclass is kind of mid. Like, it's decent. It's just...
I threw that grenade at myself.
I saw. Procking that bloody, Arc submachine gunner is called. The good one. Oh, I did not expect to hear that. Anyway, So, yeah, so, like, compared to the other Warlock subclasses, there's such a difference in power level between Top Tree Dawnblade and everything else, which is why it's so noticeable.
Yeah.
Compared to the other subclasses, like, Titans have several viable, good subclasses in PvP. You have Predator Commander, Predator Protector, you have basically all three hammers are viable in PvP, some more so than others. You have two excellent arc subclasses in PvP. Hunters, basically every subclass is viable at the minimum, with kind of 6 being actively good. And then all of Stasis is good, because Stasis will forever be good unless they butcher the actual mechanic even more, which I don't think they'll do anymore. He said.
So I think the highlights that we've gathered for this discussion is that Bungie has a couple routes that they can take, each of them with their own benefits and their own downsides. Each of them is either like a rework of the core mechanic of a subclass, or just a complete overhaul of the subclass system. Either way, it's a pretty complex issue, and the fact that we don't know what they're doing about subclasses just compounds the fact that they're having a fix, and we don't even know what they are doing on their own to it, because Top Tree Dawn is getting adjusted.
I would also say...
Yeah, and I suspect it's not going to be Icarus. It's not just Icarus Dash that's going to be adjusted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking Celestial Fire should take a hit.
I mean, they did say they wanted to buff the lacking subclasses too. I think actually the most noticeable lacking subclasses are the ones that are completely based around the super or one specific ability. Like, so Bottom Tree Dawnblade is completely based around that super, because the super is the only good thing on that subclass. You have Top Tree Ready Voidwalker, where the super's the main thing about subclass, with the grenade being good at times, but the super's the big damage. You have Bottom Tree Arc Titan with the slam that increases damage from height. That subclass is mainly based around the super, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not too knowledgeable about that side of things. So what's the... So you think the Devour Warlock is the least used of the Warlocks?
No, Bottom Tree Dawnblade is by far the least used Warlock subclass. Because break down the...
So I think what they might do is they might go for they might be trying to buff an element. Do you know what I mean? So Void is the least used of the 3 elements, right? The 3 light elements.
Overall, especially in Crucible, that's pretty safe.
Because the top 2 are going to be most used are going to be Top Tree Dawnblade and Chaos Reach, and they alone are carrying those carrying Solar and Arc.
Yeah.
So, do you think that what they will likely do first is focus on a Void or 2 Void subclasses? Then in Hunter they'll go, okay, we need to Arc. I imagine is the least used.
Yeah.
Because people love their golden guns and people love going invisible.
And Stasis.
Is that a targeted attack?
And Stasis. Yeah.
And Stasis is absolutely misses.
Yeah. Actually, I just think Arc Hunter is just showing its age where, especially with Stasis in the game, they're not, it's like, on paper, they're good subclasses. It's just especially with how the game's speeded up, you can tell they're not designed for having such fast everything. They're not designed with that in mind. Same with the Warlock subclasses. With most of the Warlock subclasses, they're not designed for the way Destiny's evolved, so you can tell some of them could fall behind. That's why I missed the Destiny 1 bit things, because those would have worked pretty well in D2 anyway.
Alright. So...
I swear I'm getting headshots, but I'm not getting headshots.
Any final thoughts about it?
I'm excited to see what happens.
Absolutely.
Final thoughts on that. Icarus Dash definitely needs a significant nerf, and I think until you see the nerf, until you have the nerf in practice, like say for example, we could have literally in this game gone okay. I mean, we literally could have. We could have gone right. You've got Icarus Dash, but you can only use it. You can only use one dash at a time.
I mean, I do.
You could literally, but you can only use one at. You can never double dash, and you've got to, obviously it would need to be a self-imposed ruling, and you have to be strict on yourself. But say we went okay, it needs like an 8-second cooldown, and you can only use one at a time, and see how much that affects your ability to perform. Oh my.
I like that idea, and also I feel like the Crucible labs that we had back in the day when Team Scorch was first like theorized, I don't think they've touched that. Taking the wayside.
Actually, do we want to talk about Destiny 1 PvP versus Destiny 2 PvP? And the absolute mess PvP is at the moment?
Maybe next time. That's But I mean, that's something I have no input on. I can compare Destiny PvP to Halo 3, Halo Reach, like old school Halo and Call of Duty PvP. That's where my experience lies.
Oh yeah, to put it in context, Irish, we're doing a podcast.
For my final thoughts, I'd say that it's a lot of theorizing what would happen based on the nerfs. I mean, it's evident that the super in Top Tree Dawn isn't the highlight. It's because comparative to even the other solar supers, I mean, the Icarus Dash is really what makes the subclass. So you don't want to ruin what makes the subclass, but you don't want the highlight to be just so incredibly strong that it overshadows others.
And you will see the super is actually kind of bad because the registration it suffers the same problem as the middle tree void hunter, where the registration on the actual flame waves is absolutely terrible.
I've never seen any issues with that myself. I haven't used it that often.
Be awful.
Yeah.
Alright,
so
what are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are that Icarus Dash isn't the problem, it's more the fact that it's one of the few subclasses that was specifically tuned for the current state of Destiny. Because think about it, it's one of, 3 subclasses that was tuned after the Go Fast update. Which was you had you had Middle Tree Void Hunter, and
Middle Tree Striker.
Yeah, Middle Tree Striker. Those were the main ones that they were buffed specifically after the Go Fast update. Not really any other subclasses had a major rework or anything. So I think they need to rework all the underperforming subclasses to a state where they actually fit into a fast Destiny, because they're not made with a fast Destiny in mind. They're made for a slow as hell Destiny, where weapons were killing in a second average. It's like in base Destiny, Devour was such a strong ability because weapons took an entire second to kill, even with 10 headshots. In Destiny 2, it means nothing because weapons have such fast TTKs and special weapons exist. It sucks in PvP. Well, it doesn't suck. It's arguably great, but it's terrible when you can just die in a single shot. Regenerating health isn't that big a deal anymore because recovery, etc. The way Destiny is fundamentally changed from year one has just changed what makes a subclass good. Mobility is king, not utility, I guess.
Yeah. So I guess it'll be very interesting to see how these subclass changes pan out and what they're doing, especially how that interacts with the special ammo economy changes.
I'm also hoping to see what I'm hoping it'll be part of the patch to to all classes where they change your ability economy in general,
yeah.
just in general, because I mean, you can just spam everything.
Yeah.
You really can.
What would you want to see in the special economy changes?
It would. I would like to see scavenger perks, maybe not.
Yeah, I think that's what they're going to do.
It's a tough
I think
one.
it'll
I think
be.
this is an episode in and of itself.
I think scavenger perks just not being
Effective
like
in
just
PvP.
basically changing the wording to combatants, right? That means PVE.
I mean,
is that correct?
I feel like they should work in PvP, but I don't think they should be able to be double stacked. And I think maybe they should be every second kill awards you to instead of every single kill.
So it'll be interesting to see how that interacts, and that's probably what we're going to talk about next, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I think so. We'll stick with PvP for the time being.
Yeah.
Because we didn't even
Definitely
touch
a lot of
on
interesting things.
the fact that we want to make these changes to your Icarus Dash and your different subclasses, but at the same time, why did I run into this void ball of death? But you don't want to lose their identity and their feel in PvE.
Yeah. Actually, do you want to just talk about that while we're at it?
I think PvE things feel really good for the most part.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, yeah, there are some underutilized classes, and I think that will be part of what they touch on, like the PvP usability. So I think, honestly, who uses really any solar titan ever in PvE, in like high level PvE content, unless they're trying to get like a raid all titans all solar achievement or whatever it is.
All right.
I mean,
that was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do we want to keep talking or do we want to end the?
I think we probably we're coming on an hour. Oh, I don't know. We didn't decide on episode time, so depends on how we want to do it.
I literally was going between half an hour and an hour, so I just set us up for 2 30-minute games.
Yep. All right. Well, I think is a good place to cut it off.
Or actually, we should probably be going until the crucial match just for the gameplay. Probably.
Sure. Why not? I guess talk some other things while we're at it.
Well, we can talk about the subclass changes for PvE as well, since we're on subclass changes.
Yeah.
Mainly.
We can talk about the fact that I should be getting headshots against you two, and I'm bloody not. I've been denied so many kills that should have been headshots. I'm telling you, they nerfed me. They nerfed me in the last patch. I mean, granted, didn't even pull the trigger there, but that's part of the nerf. They stopped me being able to pull my trigger.
Actually, can we just talk about how Warlocks literally get nerfed every single bloody patch, and always first? Like,
do they?
Stasis Warlock
I think it's just that they generally get the
of...
strongest tuning.
Yeah.
They don't though.
I'm looking at you, Deej. Remember, Deej is a Warlock main.
Yeah, but the people...
Yeah, Deej was a Warlock main.
Yeah, but don't forget the people who actually do the person in charge of the patch knows. I can't remember his name, but he's a Titan main, and you can tell because how long did the bloody striker?
I don't.
It's a conspiracy theory.
It's not. It's bloody happening. BA made a bloody video about it, and it's so obvious. It's so like you had bloody Status Warlock got nerfed in the first week. Hunters and Titans, it was an entire year before those classes got nerfed. What the bloody hell?
It wasn't an entire year. Hasn't even been an entire year.
It felt like it for Warlocks because we had to deal with this shit for so long.
Because you couldn't insta-kill raid bosses.
What? That was a bug. That was an actual subclass balancing. On this. Yeah. And then you have like One-Eyed Mask. That was a literally year that the bloody exotic wasn't tuned, and that was broken as hell for absolutely ever. You had top tree bloody or whatever is Striker Titan that was ruling Crucible since launch. That
So
just stop chasing.
the last few minutes of this has just become bubblegum rants.
Oh, rant. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
We should make a section
feel,
bubblegum rants because that is great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it needs to be like so like the Titan subclass. It was bottom or top tree, the one with bloody actually good things. The super that extended the duration as you got kills. That subclass didn't get nerfed since year bloody 3 came out. So it's like after. Why did that subclass not get touched for so long? Because the bloody community, the bloody patch note guy is a Titan main. Hunters, you had Shards of Galanor, that took
we
a
got
good 6 months.
several. Are you talking Cosmo or DMG or someone else?
No, the actual sandbox balancers, not the community managers. The actual people in charge of the sandbox, the guy in charge of that is a Titan main, and it shows. It's like Shards of Galanor, even they didn't stay as like good for as long as bloody the Finches did. Even those got those 6 months in the limelight, then they got nerfed. Hell, bloody Skull of Arham Kara, that had year 1, and then as soon as we got into year 2, that got butchered completely until it's now just a mean bloody exotic. Bloody hell, they hate Warlocks, and it makes me sad. We get nothing like Nova Warp.
You've
Nova
got
Warp
Chaos
was
Reach
butchered.
and Top Tree Dawnblade.
Yeah, I will admit I am astounded Top Tree Dawnblade has stayed untouched for this long. But look at what they did to Nova Warp versus any other subclass that's been nerfed. You had Middle Tree Voidwalker, that class got nerfed quite a lot, because on release it was just as broken as Nova Warp.
Yeah, but here's you've got to look at it from, like, you got to like come above the game and look at the whole thing and not just focus on, because you're focusing like we focus very heavily on PvP, right? But if you take a look from above and you look at all the people running around in PvE,
No one used bloody Nova Warp in PvE!
I'm not talking about Nova Warp. I'm just going to say, where are the hunters? Where are the hunters
Using
in
Golden Gun and Tether.
They're not though.
Because
There's a few. Tether got nerfed into the ground.
No, it didn't. They reduced the orb generation, but Tether has, with Starry Discales especially, Tether has the highest total damage of any super. Golden Gun still is with Celestial still has the highest DPS.
Yeah, but I'm talking I'm not talking specific classes. I'm talking if you take Titans, Hunters, and Warlocks, high level content. Everyone is using Titans for their bubbles and barricades, and Warlocks for stasis.
I raise you one Revenant Hunter in PvE because Silence and School is such a good super in
Hunters
PvE.
use
To scale.
Yeah, Hunters use Silence and School, and then you've got all the people soloing stuff with Invisible Hunters. But other than that, people don't want to go into a Master Fog with Hunters. Name one person that wants to go into a Master Fog with a Hunter. Like, and expects to survive.
Everyone, they're really good.
They're so squishy.
This is enjoyable to have a cat fight, but I'm pretty sure we should cut it here.
Yeah,
probably.
Like,
we can move on to next time.
Yeah. There's a lot of bias in our arguments, I believe, because we have a favourite class.
I'm not biased, I'm just correct. I will be enraged.
Yeah, final thoughts, I'm not biased.
Yeah. Alright, well.
Final thoughts. Warlocks got butchered from their stage in D1. Buff them again so they can rule the Crucible in PvE once again. Bring back D1 energy drain is the thing you should take away from this.
Okay,
Because that was
I'm
so
gonna
far
cut it now.